Hey everyone, it's Richard Metal Fan here, bringing you guys an old school album review, and today we're going to be looking into the third album from one of my all-time favorite bands, and as you can see below the title, today we're going to be looking into So Far, So Good, So What by Megadeth, the band's third album released in 1988 through Capitol Records. Now, this was recorded in 1987, or sort of like near late 87, early 88, and it was around that time Megadeth kind of went through another lineup change. Chris Poland and Gar Samuelson got left or got kicked out, I believe, from drug habits or something. And then in comes Jeff Young and Chuck Baylor, or on guitar and drums respectively. And with this album, like I know compared to like the first two albums, like especially like in the guitar department, Chris Poland was more the jazz guy, but with Jeff Young, he's just a straight up rock metal guy. And Chuck Baylor, in my opinion, is a pretty good drummer, and honestly one of the most underlooked drummers in Megadeth. Like not a whole lot of people talk about him. Same thing with Jeff, which is kind of a shame. I thought they did a good performance on this album. In fact, this is the only album that both Jeff and Chuck were on. But yeah, let's just dive right into this. Like production wise, it's pretty solid. I might kind of wish it was a little bit more polished, even though I have like a remastered copy. But and then the vocal work, Dave Mustaine, sounds pretty good, and his guitar playing, like he comes up with some really great riffs, and same thing with Jeff, and just then the soloing that they go through is great. Bass wise is pretty audible. David Ellefson, like I said, one of my all-time favorite bassists, and he does a really great job on this. Like his bass is definitely heard well in the mix. Can't even speak today. And drumming wise, like I said, Chuck Baylor does a pretty good job on this album. So without further ado, let's dive into this album track by track. Now starting things off is Into the Lungs of Hell, which is an instrumental, and this song has some really great solos in it. It starts off with pretty much an interesting like 12-string acoustic guitar, which actually has a little bit of distortion on it, and then some horns come in, and just Dave has some really great riffing and just some really great solo, and then another solo comes in, and that's basically it. It's pretty much the first song, and then we go into Set the World Afire, which when I first heard this song, I thought this was kind of boring to me, but then as I started listening to it more, and I just really like how just technical it is. It's one of the most technical Megadeth songs I've heard, and Dave has some pretty good solos in like the middle of the song, and then to end it, like Jeff throws his like first solo on that we've heard so far onto this album, and it's really great. And it's a pretty good way to end the song. Next song on the album is called Anarchy in the UK, which is actually a cover originally done by the almighty legendary punk band the Sex Pistols. And this song is okay, but I think it's pretty much better than the original version, and I don't really say this much about cover songs, but it's a pretty good, and it's better than for fucking Motley Crue's version of it. It's a really good song, and it makes you just want to sing along too. It's another good song. Next song is called Mary Jane, which this song, like I said, similar to Set the World on Fire, was kind of boring to me, but then as I started listening to that one more, I just thought it was awesome, and just the riffing is just great, but I feel like lyrically it could have done a bit better. All in all, it's still a good song with some really great lead work from Jeff. Next song on here is 502, which in my honest opinion, I feel like this is pretty much not my favorite song from this album. It's pretty much the worst song here. It has a couple good moments where it's good, and the solos are decent, but the lyrics are good, but that's pretty much it. But I honestly think this is just a filler song. Anyway, moving on to In My Darkest Hour, which in my opinion is probably my favorite song on this album. It has great everything, lyrics, riffs, and also it's just awesome around. And this is actually written about when Dave found out that Cliff Burton, the legendary bass player for Metallica, rest in peace, he was killed, and it's pretty much about being there for someone. And the guitar work is just amazing on this album, and just the solos are great. Pretty much my favorite song on this album, and just some great solos on here. Pretty much a classic in Megadeth's catalog. Moving on to Liar, which this song is pretty much okay. It has some decent riffing and some cool lyrics, but it's and similar to 502, it's not another one that I don't really care for. It's not one I'll regularly listen to. And then the album closes with Hook in Mouth, which in my opinion is pretty much tied within My Darkest Hour as one of the best songs on here. And I've had some, David Ellefson just really shines well in his the bass department, especially like when the guitars come in, the intro goes and then just you only hear just the bass a little bit for like the most of the verses, and then the guitars just come back in. And same thing, like right near the very end you hear the bass again. And then lyrically this song is like a bash on like the PMRC bass, who pretty much are like pussies and then just trying to like censor like evil like metal and all this bullshit. And Dave sort of like saying a big fuck you to all of that. That's pretty much, in my opinion, one of the most underrated Megadeth songs. And I honestly think this song deserves more recognition. But yeah, overall, so far so good. So What by Megadeth is a pretty good album. And pretty much a good way to end their run in the 80s. As I said, this is the last album that they've done in the 80s since this came out in 88. And we'll get to their next album, which will turn 30 next month, so be on the lookout for that. And I definitely don't need to introduce that one. But so yeah, that's my review of So Far So Good So What by Megadeth, guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about the album, and I'll see you all in the next video. And as always, keep it metal.